Hey there, welcome to Beauty in the Pom podcast. I'm Kiani Mills.
And I'm Andy Reid.
Two friends who have a very similar set of values, but who have taken very different life paths to end up in similar situations.
We are also business owners, parents, property enthusiasts, and bloody short on time. So we bring you this podcast to shine a light on humanising business.
Because look, let's face it, business is life, and life is business. All right, welcome back for those listening at home. We are Andy Reid and Kiani Mills making up the apparently not so bad to listen to Beauty in the Pom podcast. Andy, it is lovely to be speaking with you once again.
G'day, Kiani. Hello, everybody. Hope everybody's well. Apparently we've got a couple of things that are worth listening to, and which is nice, I guess.
I like it. I really like it.
Yeah. And look, and now that we've discovered and established that we're not too bad at this thing, apparently, it's now time to open up the doors and let a few people into the show. And Kiani, you've invited a young lad who is young lad, like I'm 70. Yeah, exactly. You've invited a gentleman on to the show today who I've read the background of, and man, has he got some story. I'm really looking forward to this one, actually. So why don't you introduce our guest for today?
I shall, with absolute pleasure. A dear friend of mine, Jack Littman. It hasn't been a very long friendship, but I feel like we've gone really deep, really fast, and hence the reason that I wanted to get Jack on today. We first met through a friend, a very dear friend of both of ours, which was beautiful, and instantly realized that we both had some pretty deep stories going back very, very far. But it gotten to a point in our lives where we'd found something that really resonated with us to try and help us get through the fog, get through the darkness or the stuckness or the heaviness. And, this is a topic that Andy and I have spoken about a lot. What do we do when we're faced with those things in life? One of our episodes quite recently was talking about you're not made of Teflon and that the crash is real. So if the crash is real, then, how do we combat it? So Jack, I'm super excited to have you on today. Not only is your story and your journey incredible and what you are doing currently with from your past life into your current life and now creating your future life, which I will let you share in a second. But Jack and I really kind of went deep when we were organizing to run a retreat, which will happen, and I'm still very excited about it. But me, through my self-directed healing practicing with clients, Jack has created such a beautiful program that complements that process, but just on its own complements by introducing binaural beats with an individual's personalized affirmations over the top to create, it's almost like a supercharged meditation of your own words, positive words of affirmation to help you really instill those values and those core beliefs. So Jack, I thank you so much for being with us today. It's a real pleasure to have you on.
Oh, what an intro. Thank you
good.
So much.
I told you she's good. I told you wanted her intro in giving you an introduction, not me.
Yeah, done. That's it. We're good.
Way better than me.
Thank you so much for being here. Yeah, our friendships, I think, took a turn like very quickly for the better. I was like, oh, this is my people. I got so excited. I had a lot of other friends that were close to me who are in the similar mindset that I really was like, man, you're not going to believe who I just met. These people are sick. Oh, this is awesome. I feel so comfortable. Yeah, it's really cool.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Hey, look, Jack, I'm really, really keen on meeting you, man. Like as Kiani's spoken so highly of you, it's from what I can gather, it's entirely with validity. You've had an incredible journey up to this point, and we're really going to try and not be too cliche with this catch up because you've got some very distinct chapters to your life that's brought you up to this point, right? Before we crack on and get into the nuts and bolts of it in terms of how your experiences have formed your future and your thoughts around this whole topic of humanizing business, who the hell are you?
Direct as always.
Yeah, that's great. So I guess probably I'll start from about 2009 when I joined the Army. I'm an ex combat engineer, basically fresh out of school, joined the army when I was 19 and got posted up into Darwin and then moved down to Adelaide, where I got put onto the Afghanistan deployment in 2012 to 2013.
Right.
Yeah, we got back from that. And
how was it? Sorry to jump in. How was it? How was that? Like,
yeah, okay.
Afghanistan to me sounds like something that I only read in books and see on TVs. Like, it almost doesn't seem real to me because it is so terrifying and far away.
And you're an engineer, right? So were you what were you specializing? What was your sort of core focus?
So I was a combat engineer. So the main role of us was survivability and movability, which in layman's terms means you got a mine lab and you're out the front and you're making sure that no one gets blown up. So yeah,
engineer, not like engineer behind the scenes with your head in a computer or papers or drawings, like on the ground.
Yeah, that's it. Yep. Crack the mine lab out the front and walk out the front of all the armored vehicles. Just me and my two legs that I was very nervous to lose sometimes.
Man. I've got one of my closest mates who is a listener of this, Rob Seamark. Shout out to the boy. He was in a similar deployment for the British Army, and in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
But he was in bomb disposal and whatnot as well. But there he was at the end of it, where you knew there was some shit there that could blow up, whereas you were sort of doing that with a blindfold on.
Yeah,
basically.
Yeah. I think I was, by all accounts, that sounds like he was an EOD tech. And so that means that, once we've found the IED, we call those guys out to come and dispose of it and make it safe.
Man, why the fuck did you stick your hand up for that? Seriously. Like, why?
That's a great question. And sometimes I sit there and ask myself that. And I don't really come up with a very good answer, to be honest. Wow. I guess it was probably, ironically, I'm pretty sure I was thinking, I just don't want to be in infantry. So I'll go that one.
Wow. Not even that maybe I won't go at all and go and get a desk job like most people.
No.
It was that I don't want to do inventory, so I'm going to go and stand on the field.
Well, like my mindset at that time, I was 19, I was living in Darwin. It was basically, I was working in retail. So my days were basically, I had Sunday and Monday off. So Tuesday to Saturday, I was working in the shop. Then Wednesday was footy training. And Monday. Friday, sometimes it was footy training if we had a game on the Sunday or a bye, and then we're playing a game of footy, you're getting drunk, and then you just do it all again. And I remember thinking, man, I can see that this is a cycle that I'm living on and I do not want to be here. So I literally saw an ad pop up and I was like, I'm going to do that. We're not going to go to war. Lo and behold, that was the year that we went to war. Essentially, that was the year that the first deployments were over in Afghanistan.
Wow. You said that you didn't want to do infantry. Is it because partly because getting shot at wasn't enough, but was it a case of there was a part of your personality maybe that made you want to be different in some way? You wanted to step out and be, your wiring was a little bit different to the norm, even in that context?
Yeah, that very much resonates. I remember looking at what the job description was essentially, and a lot of things fall under the umbrella of combat engineer. Like there's obviously route clearance, but there's bridge building, like we make a floating support bridge. There's water purification. If you want to be a chippy or a fireman, you do the first part of the combat engineer course, and then you go off and do the different aspects of it. And obviously demolitions was a cool thing that piqued my interest. I just didn't think at what stage that was going to be sort of playing out in my future.
Wow. Mate, how does that affect a guy? Because I know it affected my mate. But tell us, if you're happy to, tell us how does that affect a human, right? Yeah. Give us the contrast of what sort of glasses you were viewing the world in before, and what the differences were when you, post going through something like that.
Yeah, well, it's funny because I discharged in 2014, and it's only just probably over the last couple of years that I'm really seeing what I've held down. Like things that I thought were just, you just learn to grin and bear it. These are just army things, like those kinds of things that you sort of don't let get in the way of the job at hand. The more I think about it, I think I've come down to it was just get the job done. Just do what it takes to get the job done is a pretty good understatement for army life. And it's true. Like, you need that to happen. Like, at the end of the day, if you're in a contact or anything like that, someone goes down, you've got 10 rifles pointing down range and one person gets shot. If you stop, then now there's 8 rifles going down range rather than 9. Obviously, if that person's been injured critically, you quickly wrap a tourniquet around and then you're back trying to regain the initiative. But yeah, I guess now that I've actually given myself space to pause and think about who I am and ask those questions, I'm understanding that a lot of the things that I learned in the army were not conducive with, real life. Or I guess not real life, but a life that I'd like to lead.
Right. Okay. Like what?
Let's go with compartmentalization is a great one. There is no barrier for that, but to put it into an army context, I remember in initial employment training, our sergeant was showing us images, videos of people that have been essentially blown up, right? Casualties of IEDs. And before the lesson, he said, look, there's going to be some pretty graphic content coming forward. If that makes you feel queasy or anything, you're more than welcome to step out. But I just want to let you know from experience that the first time you see this kind of stuff, you don't want that to be on deployment. You need to know that you've got the tools to be able to handle that. And so I stayed, and it's pretty wild to think that I got to a point of like the conversation around death and getting shot and injuries and losing limbs and things like that. It was very much as though we were talking about, what kind of coffee order you wanted to put in for the morning. Like, it was so just as it was, because that's what it was. That was the job, right? And so I got really good at just compartmentalizing the emotions that probably should have gone along with seeing and experiencing things like that, learning about things like that. And unfortunately, there's no barrier to that, in the sense that that level of compartmentalization and protection of my emotions bled into relationships with friends, family, romantic relationships. And I didn't realize that was happening until, only a few years ago. So it was like years after I got out.
I feel like also too, like, you're a 19-year-old kid who's full of testosterone. You don't know any different.
No.
Like, you're experiencing all of this for the first time. So there's got to be an element of your fight, flight, survival mode just kicking in and, as you said, getting the job done. So it's almost like you didn't have an opportunity to experience or feel, or you were there to do something and you were doing that.
Yeah.
The fact that it's happening or coming out later, and I know, totally different scenarios, but I know for me, living in survival mode for so long, it took me until I was able to feel safety and have a minute to, as you said, space to be able to allow those things to come up, because we don't know any different. Our bodies are wired to protect us, and that's kind of what they're doing.
That's, bang on the money. Yeah, living in survival mode, living with an insane amount of tension that you don't realize. It just becomes part of your life.
It just becomes habit, right? And I'm glad you brought that up, Kiani, because that's the parallel that I'm seeing as like the guy on the sidelines here, and comparing notes from what you've spoken about, Kiani, and what you've just said there, Jack, is that is how trauma affects the way that we are wired and the way that we filter any information moving forward, right? It's fairly massive, man. I mean, now I know we've talked about all the nastiness, and I say all of it. We've scratched the surface of the nastiness from an army point of view, right? What has been, so let's bring it forward to the next sort of chapter in your story, which is you come out of the army and you go into business with someone that you know. When you started this journey, okay, like what was it from the army that you felt you could bring to the business world that made you feel that at that point you were ready to run a business?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. And when you put it like that, that I was ready to run a business, I realized that I didn't ask myself that question at all. I was coming off the back of a deployment and feeling like I'd reached a gold standard. I'm an army veteran. I've like done my years, like blah, blah, blah. The next thing is like, of course I'm going to kill this because I'm a hard worker. I'm driven. I've got a will to win. That's one of the morals of the army. I didn't think about any other aspects. And I also went in there with a naive amount of trust, expecting people to treat me as I would treat them.
Because that's what, you look to the left of you, you look to the right of you, and you're protecting your brothers and sisters that are on the front line, right? So is that the sort of mentality that you took forward with this business concept, thinking that you're looking to the left or the right of you and your business partner is going to be there, rifle in hand, ready to go, metaphorically speaking, of course?
Yep. Bang on the money, man. Yep.
Wow. And what was the business?
It was a clothing label. And
right.
Yeah.
So going from shooting people and blowing shit up to dressing.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, at that point, I was still, I guess, 24 years old, 19 to 24, fashion and wanting to look good and dress well. That became something that I was like proud of and that I wanted to do, and I took an interest in. And this guy showed up, and we became friends. And yeah, as my discharge started to take effect, it sort of overlapped with going into business with him. But that ended up taking a sour turn when the supplier that he used to get his clothes apparently took our investment.
Oh, that's a lesson to learn, isn't it?
Oh, so how did you know this dude?
Basically through a friend of mine that ran and owned one of the suit shops.
Right. And as you can tell here, gang, for our listeners, it wasn't a business that ended overly well. So, mate, why don't you just give us tell us whatever you want to say, whatever you want to tell us about your experience starting that first business, and how it impacted you when you started to see the house of cards starting to tumble.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't really think about that in line with my discharge until just now, but that's interesting. That's cool. So yeah, I left and I honestly thought, in my mind, I was thinking, oh, this is great. This guy's showing me all the legitimate things. He's registered a business name and, being so naive. I know exactly that. So naive. Good on you, bro. Yeah, so naive. A kid still, really, and also a kid emotionally as well.
Plus 5 years of your life as well. So
I really did. Yeah.
You're still running as a 19-year-old.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. I just basically went in blindly trusting that what I was going to get out of this was what I thought I was going to get out of this, rather than paying attention to the reality of the situation. And at the end of that, yeah, I like to this day, I still have like court orders and things like that to chase him down. But I realized that it got to the point where thinking about trying to chase him down and get money back was holding me back. That became an anchor for me. I was just trying to live in the past, right? But that process, like after that, from basically discharging until I was 26. So that next sort of 2 years, man, that was rough. Like I'd basically come off the bat, left the army as a veteran, gone to war, become broke, chasing money, didn't know what the hell I was doing. I was too proud to ask for help. It grinded my gears. I remember ending up calling up my parents and being like, I like, this has happened and I need to borrow some money so that I can put fuel in my car to get to a job interview. I think that was my first real cracking open. And that's when I first experienced anxiety and depression, although I didn't know of those labels at that time, and culminated in me almost committing suicide. And it just so happened the road that I'd chosen to go down, it was kind of long. It was a 60 zone. And it was like one of those roads that, like, after you sit on it for like 30 seconds, you know when somebody's not doing 60. And I was the only car on the road, and the copper went down the other side and they ended up pulling me over. That was the deviation of my track. And I, after the shock had worn off, I was like, I just need to turn this around. And I dug deep into again, I would probably put it back into the army way of thinking of the drive, the will to win. Like, I just need to, I don't want to feel this way anymore. And so what can I do to get myself out of this? And I ended up getting a job for a labor hire company. And that's basically what I did for the next 2 years as I sort of built myself back up. But my confidence was shot. My self-esteem was shot. Yeah, I was a shell.
Yeah. I mean, I guess when you come in, sorry, Key, when you're coming from the army and you haven't been shot and you've got no bullet holes in you and all that sort of stuff, you kind of would come out of that feeling somewhat invincible, like you said, right? You feel that I wanted this, I'm going to win it. I'm going to win it that now. And I mean, like, to put it into context for the listeners, I mean, in terms of scale of revenue that you would have pumped into it, and you mentioned you've pumped pretty much everything into it.
Yeah.
You would have built up an accumulation of savings through the army and whatnot, right?
Yeah.
So all of that good work that you did through there, all gone. And it's interesting you talk about self-esteem, and we were saying this before we came on air, which is why we need to hit record earlier, Kiani. Look how many times you mentioned about the stuff that you are working on now that we're going to talk about shortly, and how it's taking you a while to rip the band-aid and actually take that step over the line to giving something new a go. Would you say that this, in a sense, this new thing that you are putting together, is it almost like a therapy for you? Almost, is it almost like part of your recovery? Is a part of you proving to yourself that you are evolving and recovering? Is this project that you're working on now?
100%, man. Every day I'm learning something new, and I am shit scared a lot of the time. And I've become aware that I'm that scared, like, of whatever it is, whether it be failing or, meeting glass ceilings and things like that. And each day I'm like, it's okay to be scared. Let's just keep taking other steps. One more step, and then take a break.
Bit like finding mines. Take one more step. Leg's not blown off. Very good. We'll take the next step now.
Yeah.
But also, too, off the back of that, you lost a couple of people after the army and during your time in the army too, didn't you? So, outside of feeling invincible, there was a lot of loss there, and there was what I could imagine, and I feel like there's so many veterans out there at the moment, which we'll talk about the amazing things that you're doing in a minute. But I would imagine that a lot of people would come out of the army. For some of them, they're in a lot longer than 5 years. They commit their lifetimes to these things and then step out of it and have no real sense of who they are and fall down this path. And I don't know what the statistics are, but I know that especially in Melbourne, a lot of the homeless people that we see on the streets are ex-vets because they just can't rehabilitate back into life. So, I mean, it's a horrible thing to think about, but I can absolutely understand how it would feel so foreign to be back in a world with all of these. You've been living on this moral compass for the last 5 years that is somewhat in this insular bubble that the rest of the world don't live by those moral compasses. So coming out and experiencing what you experienced so early on, while, such an incredible shock and disappointment in humankind to happen, but in some way, shape or form, the fact that it happened early, you've been able to get on top of it and really decide what it is that you wanted to do and how you were going to change. So I commend you for that. I really do.
Yeah. No, it's true. As sucky as it was, I'm definitely glad that it happened at the age that it did. I've been able to learn from that experience and as we've said, evolve. And I've had time, I've had time to grow, pause, look back, grow some more, and be where I am now and still have a lot of time left.
You got heaps of time left, man. Jeez, yeah. And gang, just to put a little bit of context behind this man, Jack. If you could see what I could see, I'm seeing a real thatch on the chin. He, even though he's out of the army, but the army's still in him. He's a manly man. He's a good-looking guy, man. He's got plenty of shit going for him. I'm not gonna lie. Mate, before we go onto this new chapter that you're on now. I really wanted to ask with regards to, because there will be people that are in various stages of their careers, business lives, so on and so forth. There'll be people that are thinking of starting a new business, people that have probably gone down a similar path to you and shit it all away, for whatever reason, right? what are the key things that you learn about business life and yourself in business that you really hold as worthwhile lessons from that experience of going belly up that first time?
Definitely hold your trust close to your chest. It's there's a difference between opening with politeness and opening up with too much trust.
Mm-hmm.
I think I always go in, when you meet somebody, I'm always going in with a level of trust. But now when it comes down to separating myself with money, there needs to be a lot more on the table. And that sort of brings me on to my next point, and that is ask questions. God, I never asked questions. I was just like, yeah, sure. Again, that goes hand in hand with trust. I thought that they had my best interest in at hand, and no, everyone's out for number one, and you should be too, right? That doesn't mean leaving people in the dust, but it means just being careful and making sure that you are clear about what you're getting into, about where you're going, and if there is any ambiguity, that there is a point set in the future to rectify that, basically.
Yeah.
Amazing. They're really good lessons, gang, that you all need to take here from. If you're thinking of going into business, it doesn't matter whether it is your brother, your sister, your best friend, your auntie's dog's bloody sister's cat, or whatever it is. You've got to make sure that you've done the due diligence required, because if you don't do that, you're leaving yourself open to things going south very, very quickly. And if you do that, then it doesn't matter what relationship you got, you ain't going to have one afterwards. So now, Kiani, I want you guys to have a chat about this Restora, because I know that you've been assisting Jack with it. But Jack, before Kiani gets stuck into this part of it, you tell us what is this new project that you're working on? What is it that you've had the balls to step out there and put yourself out there again in a business sense? I mean, that's where I tip my cap to you very much so, because for a lot of people, they'll go down that horrific path once and it'll be never again. So talk to us. What is this new project? What is it about? And then I'll let Kiani get stuck into you on this one.
Yeah, so Restora in a nutshell is basically a tool that is going to help people hack meditation so that they can change their mindset, literally change their neural pathways to rewrite behaviors that are no longer serving them, a narrative that might not even be theirs. We pick up things throughout our lives from our parents, from our grandparents, family, friends, everything like that, right? And we get out into the world and find that something just isn't so. And so that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
Cool. Okay, get stuck into him.
All right. This to me, it sparked my interest so much, and as actually, I haven't really spoken about the self-directed healing work that I do, but effectively, it all starts within the body, finding your emotions and healing trauma through the body. Now, the reason that Jack and what Jack is creating sparked my mind so much is because we all know it takes 21 days to create a habit, and that can be a good habit or a bad habit. Bad habits tend to be a little bit faster, but if we're wanting to reintroduce a habit, generally 21 days of consistency. Consistency is key. But when it comes to retraining our brain, we've had a conversation, we've had an episode talking about our ego before. Our ego is so strong, and we've got, depending on our age, 30 plus years of our ego controlling us. Jack put it perfectly. We have been indoctrinated. We have got patterns. We have got generational trauma. We have got so many beliefs that we have created, maybe from primary school or even before primary school, that just don't serve us anymore. But in some way, shape or form, sometimes we don't know. They are transparent. But the binaural beats, which Jack, I'll let you go through the scientific part of it, tap into a level of brainwave that can help you instill your positive affirmations in a state that your brain will be more receptive to. And it does sound a little bit scientific wishy-washy, However, the proven results of it are incredible. And a lot of the times you can literally jump on Spotify and listen to binaural beats. You can jump on Insight Timer and find binaural beats with guided meditations over the top and things like that. The difference here, and the thing that I love about it, is that Jack will record your own words after getting you in a state of bliss, being in that powerful moment of, who do I want to be in this moment? Who do I want to be in the next moment? And who am I in the future? And from that state, I am powerful. I am loved. I am incredible. I am beautiful, whatever they are. And then layer those over the beats, and you're listening to your own words. And over time, Jack and I created this little thing, 21 days, 21 minutes. You've got these new neural pathways that are creating, and it's your voice. You're telling your brain, you're rewiring your brain through your own words. And it's incredible. And this is something that Jack, go global, my friend, because, and his story is the perfect story for this. He was trained in a way, and his brain believed what he was told to believe through the job that he had to do, whether it's through a work effort, parents, whatever it might be. That wasn't his decision. That wasn't his thoughts. So this is a way, I suppose, from my perspective, of being able to rewire it in the way that we wish to. And the beauty of it is that you can change it as much as you want.
Yeah.
So what is a binaural beat, Jack?
Yeah. Okay. So, this is where if I start speaking fast, it's because I start to get kind of excited about this. So I'll give some context into how I sort of stumbled across it. And that was essentially, I was in a position or a situation where I was pretty triggered, and I spoke to a friend of mine, and he said, "Mate, you sound like me when I was going through a really bad spate of anxiety." And I ended up using affirmations, and I was like, and my exact response was like, "I've been thinking about this for 12 months, and I've kept putting it off." So I was like, "I don't need affirmations." The typical, yeah. Anyway,
Typical thatched-faced bloke, basically.
That's it.
Alpha male
statements.
Just get your flannel shirt on and start lumberjacking something.
So anyway, I took his affirmations. He sent them to me, and I listened to them out to. I just started a new job, and I listened to them out to where I was meant to be doing, taking my meeting, and I made my first sale, and I was like, wow, that's kind of cool. I drove back. I listened to it again. It was about a 40-minute drive. So I was manually putting it on repeat. And I was sort of like, well, I wonder how it would feel if I recorded these in my own words. And I still have my first recording. It is so fast. It's like a machine gun with how quickly I'm saying these affirmations. So it's so obvious that I'm so anxious. But I started to listen to them on a loop, and just each day I felt like adjectives just don't do it justice. I just felt this well of power and excitement start to build in my body. It's just borderline indescribable. And I was sort of like, what can I do? Would it be possible for me to elevate this further? And I was already looking into making binaural beats with my music software. So I decided to overlay those.
We just jump in and premise here that he's also a musician.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So we've not got that bit in the bio.
Sorry.
All right. So let's just all right. So what music do you play?
I guess the stuff that's on Spotify is sort of more indie electro, indie folk kind of stuff. Yeah.
So for those of you that have a clue what he just said there, hopefully that makes some sense.
You can look me up on Spotify, Litters, just a short plug, Litters.
Well done.
Litters.
Yeah, good road trip.
Is that your DJ name, is it?
That's fine.
You didn't tell me we had someone cool on here, Kiani.
Not quite a DJ, but yes, he's got a very beautiful voice, and he's a very talented musician. So hence the reason you went into the binaural beat.
Sorry, carry on.
So now I've laid them all up, and I've gotten to the point where I'm listening to them. I created a track that was about 21 minutes long, and which was so aligned with when Kiani and I were chatting, and just started to listen to those. And I'm telling you, the transformation that I went under, it honestly was just the key that unlocked whatever was my next step and my next chapter. I ended up catching up with a girl that I'd previously had a relationship with. And it was reflected back to me in the way that she was looking at me, that she was seeing somebody different. And I felt huge. I felt so good. And that was probably the first inkling where I was like, this is the path now towards the man that I want to be. This is where this is how I want to feel. This is everything I need to put this into the hands of other people. And that was a short while ago. Again, met up with my fears and my glass ceilings and things like that. So I actually started to use the program to undo those glass ceilings and those fears, and it's gotten me to the point now where I've got a website, I'm taking on clients, I am researching the hell out of all the different ways that I can make this business like pop. Basically, I want to get it into as many hands as possible. That's sort of where we're at now.
I mean,
now, just quickly, one thing that I didn't go into, just explain the binaural beats.
Okay. Yeah, of course.
I feel like it's theta or beta. I'm not sure.
Yep. The science behind it. Yeah.
Geeky stuff.
Yeah, cool. So wearing headphones, the binaural beats part is basically two frequencies going into the left and right ear, and there is a difference between each frequency. So for theta, it's anywhere from about 4 hertz to 8 hertz, and that will create a warble sound, kind of like when you've got the window down, you're driving along.
And it goes...
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah. And because we are all energy, we're all frequencies, and our brains are supercomputers, it will begin to entrain and mimic that frequency level. And so you can take somebody that's in, so the levels that they go from delta, which is REM sleep, theta, which is meditation, alpha, which is a relaxed state, then beta, which is, there's two sort of levels of beta. So there's like socializing, which we're in right now, and problem solving. And then there's high beta, which is anxious, stressed out, fight or flight, basically. So you can take somebody that's operating at high beta and get them to listen to, a lower brainwave state, alpha or theta, and their brain will slowly start to come down. So you're essentially using technology to hack your brainwave state.
So we could use this to help Andy sleep at night?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's quite clever.
That one.
Well, no. My brain's turning into geek mode. This is good. This is really, really good. How did you come across this stuff?
Just research, man. The biggest question that put me on this path was, who am I? I really was like, I don't know if the things that I like are the things that I actually like, or whether I've just adopted these because the people around me like these things. And I honestly couldn't answer with authority any of those questions, which was scary as shit. I was like, okay, I need to do some work. I read books like How to Unfuck Yourself and, No More Mr. Nice Guy, because I was a people pleaser, a range of different things, like branched into philosophy, like Stoic philosophy, Seneca, and all that. But I was just questioning. I was finally asking questions like, why? Why do I feel like this? Why? And do I need to feel like this? Is there another way? Is there something else out there? Are other people doing things that I don't know about? And that's what led me onto binaural beats. And so with that layer done, you're lowering your brainwave state into theta, which is meditation and suggestibility. And then with your affirmation, that's the cool part, right? So now you've basically gained access to your deep-seated programming using technology. And then with your affirmations, you're starting to rewrite all those things that no longer serve you. And that, I think, it's important to note here, with people that have tried affirmations in the past and find that there's some kind of abrasiveness or something that doesn't add up. If you're somebody, and I'll use money here because it's a great example. If you're somebody that is flat broke, you have a terrible relationship with money, and you're listening to, first of all, it's somebody else's affirmations. But they're saying things like, I am a millionaire. There's a very small fraction of people that is going to be able to convert that into something that is usable, right? But for the majority of us, it's like, that's too far removed from your start point. And so you need to turn that around and bring it back to closer to where you are and say something more along the lines of, I'm improving my relationship with money every day. Because that's something that you can own.
I have a healthy bank account.
Yeah. Even somebody that doesn't, right? Like it's right back. I always come back to like using the metaphor of starting in the gym, like you're not going to go and deadlift 200 kilos, you got to learn the technique first.
Yep.
This is kind of like, it kind of sounds like it's kind of like the hat that the book The Secret wish it had.
Yeah.
Right? Because
This
and the
is
reason
why I'm so excited about it.
right, it's because I'm a massive skeptic when it comes to The Secret, right? Like for me, The Secret gets people to just sit on the couch and say happy things to themselves, and then all of a sudden they're fucking rich and all the rest of it. I just think it is missing a huge component of it, which is the effort, it's the application, and right? It's just too stupid for me. Anyway, not that it's like one of the most biggest selling books in the world, but Andy just thinks it. Anyway. But I think that this is a serious act. So when you've got clients, so you have clients, right? So you say you've just started taking on clients.
Yeah.
So what are your interactions with said clients? Like what's the process for a client that comes into Restora?
Yeah, sure. So we book in a Zoom call, and that's basically the process would be that they'd log onto the site, they'd buy a package where we book in a Zoom call. They get sent a reflection sheet because you cannot know where you're going if you don't know where you are. And so that reflection sheet will basically give them a start point and give them a chance to think about force them to take space and take time to think about the areas of their life that they wish to change. And in our Zoom call, we're obviously getting to know each other first and foremost, but we basically work through the chosen areas of their life that they want to change. And I've tested and tried it before to change a lot of things at once, and it really just doesn't work. So it's about picking one thing at a time so that you can come at it from a lot of different directions. I was using this really weird metaphor the other day. If you want to,
we love a good metaphor, mate. You crack on.
All right. So imagine that you have a box of moles, like moles as in like the dig holes, right?
Yep.
And around the outside, you've also got a whole bunch of different holes that the moles can dig their trenches to.
Careful how you say this shit, by the way. This gets it. Anyway.
Okay, but basically, if you were to send one mole out to each of those like trenches or each of those holes, then they're only going to be 1 mole deep, right? So you think about that as your neurons, your neural pathways. Whereas if you were to go, all right, we're sending all 15, 20 moles out to that destination, then that trench is going to be deep. It's going to be strong. And so that's basically the way that you want to look at writing your affirmations and using Restora. You want to pick that one subject and nail it, because otherwise you might as well just say you have one statement and then move on to the next one. You've got nothing really.
So what I'm hearing is like you can't heal everything all at once. It's a scattergun approach. It's like, I've got 10 tasks to do and I'm going to give 10% to each one of my tasks rather than doing one task and giving it 100% of my time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly right. Like you've got sometimes up to decades of stuff that you're trying to undo. Like it's very naive to think that you can do it in 5 minutes.
Yeah, which is the beauty why we can grow on it, we can evolve it, we can change it, and we can apply it to every single area of our life over time.
Yep.
This is interesting stuff, this, man. What I really like about it, and this is, and again, when we talked off before the recording about my first observation of it, is the fact that this project it has a clear purpose. It's got such a drive. Like I don't know. I'm sure that the listeners can feel this like burst of energy as soon as we've got onto this topic of Restora, right? It's pretty significant. I mean, I'm feeling it for sure that there's such a desire to want to help people to alter their wiring for the betterment of their lives moving forward. Now, from your point of view, in terms of if we were to just talk about this in a business sense, so the purpose is absolutely nailed on, got it licked and whatnot. What are your key demographics? Like who are the early target markets that you're looking at? Because for me, I'm thinking that this is as an alternative to to people quitting smoking and things like that. That's my early thought. But who are you wanting to help first is really the question.
Yeah, I've been trying to work on this because it's realistically anyone can use it, right?
Yeah.
For me,
well, if we take your mole analogy, if you go try and throw a million moles out, then you're only going to get 1 mole deep.
Exactly. So Yeah, I've been trying to give this a lot of thought recently, and I think one hook would be people that struggle to meditate. If you were to turn around and if there's people that have a desire to reach some sort of level of peace and tranquility, but they keep sitting down, they keep finding it that they feel that they cannot meditate, then the technology is there to help them reach the meditative state.
Why is hold on. Let's I want to interject. Why is meditating important?
It's important to these people.
Why?
Well, that's ask. If we're asking me, it's because I find that if I'm meditating, I'm a lot more centered in my business conversations. I actually created a Restora. I created a thing for my business conversations. I found that I was trying to answer questions way too quick, and I was rushing, and the stuff that was coming out of my mouth was absolutely putrid. And so I was like, all right, I have an app. I have something that I can use. So let's use it. And so I made one that was a lot. For an example of some of my affirmations, it was, I'm calm, I am centered. There is no need to rush. I evaluate carefully. And man, I listened to that. I listened to that for 20 days before I ended up doing an interview for a company that was trying to poach me. And I remember walking out of the interview going like, man, I really stopped and took a breath on every one of those questions that I didn't have the answer for. That's just wild. I'm just growing. And then it was like later on in the day, I was like, oh my God, because I've been using this track. That makes sense. It even didn't click for me. It was so subliminal, right?
I'm glad I dug because that is significant, man. For anybody that's listening that is thinking about, start, or is what you said before is in terms of rushing decisions, rushing answers, which is something that so many business people and to be fair, employees really, really struggle sometimes with getting the right answer out because they're too worried about getting the answer out as quickly as possible. When it comes to our customers, we're so quick to try and fix stuff when essentially we could be putting a band-aid over a broken leg, and the answer requires a degree more thought, but because we're so worried about serving up an answer in a shorter space of time, we end up cocking it up, right?
Yeah. And hard conversations, having a hard conversation, we get so anxious and uptight about it and defensive because we're assuming something's going to go wrong. But I guess that meditation and that mentality around being calm and steady, and it really does apply to anything and everything.
So you could use this. So say, for example, so how long are these tracks? They're 21 minutes.
Yeah, but 21, at least 21 minutes.
At least 21 minutes.
Yeah, 21 to 23 generally they seem to be sitting at.
So yeah, I'm just thinking I'm going back old, like real estate salesperson, right? I'm going into that mode and I'm thinking it would take me, generally speaking, it could take 20, 25 minutes to go from the office to a listing appointment. If I was to set up a listing track that would help to cure anxiety, fear of rebuttal, fear of rejection, then that's essentially what you are trying. So that is very much a practical sort of commoditization of how you could turn this theory, this science, into a very practical application that will help to increase your probability of an outcome.
Yeah,
absolutely. I'm doing one with Jack shortly before my trip to Paris for me to speak on stage.
Not that she needs it, gang, but I'm sure, well, look, in all fairness, she's doing it in front of a whole bunch of French people, to be fair. So I think we all need a bit of support.
I need as much help as I can get.
Yeah, fair play. This is interesting, man. So did you come across this? You said research and you were very flippant in your discovery of this, but research would have taken, we're talking lots and lots of research, but did you stumble across it because of your love of music or your self-discovery? Like, I want to know more about this research.
Yeah, for sure. So there's a number of different auditory tools that people have discovered along the way. I would say that it would have started with, because I cannot remember, I was looking at a lot of things at once, that it started with meditation tracks, and then I was like, I wonder if there's certain tones that elicit a certain feeling, like colors do. And I stumbled across the solfeggio frequencies. That's another thing that you can look up. There are a bunch of different frequencies that will elicit and I think they reverberate to different areas of the body. And yeah, in amongst that kind of foray into auditory tools is when I stumbled across binaural beats. And I then it was sort of like, because going through YouTube and things like that, it's the title is going to be there, but then you have to go like, well, what is this? And then it was like, oh, well, there's 5 different states, and this relates to meditation. I'm like, damn, that's really cool. You can use that to meditate, and then you just go down the rabbit hole, man. Yeah, pretty much.
And the ones that you find on like Spotify and things like that, they are for joy, for love, for relationships, for work. Like they're very
well, it's broad, right? It's not made for
beautiful word. I was going to say stiff, but yes,
yeah.
broad, very broad. Whereas I guess what you've done, the binaural beats aren't necessarily new. They're there and they've been used before, but the affirmations and in your own words haven't. And the specific is terrific.
Yeah.
So being able to really hit the nail on the head for that individual person at that individual moment of their life, that's where the lasting change comes from.
Yeah, absolutely.
Amazing.
Yeah.
This is interesting stuff, man. This is really, really good. And I love how you've taken some of the lessons that you've learned. It sounds like you've still got a load of lessons that you want to learn and need to learn, right? But the fact that you've effectively gone to war, come back, ended up going to war again in a corporate sense, essentially, been on the brink, and then through all of those challenges and so on and so forth, you've come across a purpose that is clearly where you're supposed to be. And that's I know a drastic summarization, but that is it's a story in itself, man. And I want to thank you for coming on and opening up our minds and our eyes and our ears to not only this whole binaural beats thing and the whole concept of it, because I struggle with meditation. I can't, like, unless I'm running somewhere, meditation. So, coming up could get interesting, right? I could end up running up and down a bit with my headphones on or some shit like that, right? But anyway, look, man, I think it's fascinating, and I think everybody that's listening to this will definitely want to be keeping a track of Restora and how you grow as a process with and alongside Restora. I think it's fascinating, man. So incredible.
Yeah, it's really
thank you. Yeah, I'm very excited to see how things unfold.
Maybe we'll get Andy some binaural beats and some affirmations, and we'll do a recap in 6 months and see how miraculous he is. Not that you're not miraculous now, but
yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, all right. All right. Let's crack on. Yeah, wonderful.
We have that recorded.
Yeah. I guess she's determined to make me into a hippie, Jack. She really, really is.
I'll let you wear shoes when you come to visit.
I appreciate it. Anyway.
Thank you so much, Jack. It was so great to have you. There's so many more places I wanted to go. We didn't even get to talk about the great work you're doing with the veterans now, but I'm sure we'll have you back on again and we can go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it was a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much, guys. Yeah.
Andy, you want to wrap us up?
I just think that this has been a wonderful episode that hopefully everybody can take a couple of things from this, in the sense of, if nothing else, that a failure does not necessarily mean it's the end of the journey for you. It can be a very harsh lesson. It can be critically harsh in the case of Jack, sometimes being at the brink, and I've been there, and a whole bunch of you guys will have been there as well. Just understand, though, as long as there's pages in the book, there's still room to write some more chapters, and Jack is an embodiment of that. So if you learn nothing else, then most certainly you should learn that. But if I were you, because I'm not going to lie, I'm going to be having a look at it in my bit of downtime. If you are really struggling to slow your mind down, if you're really sort of struggling because you've either got business pressures or life pressures or all of the above, and your mind's whirring at 1,000,000 miles an hour, maybe take a look at this Restora thing, gang, and see how binaural beats and see how Jack's managed to get into the position that he's in via this, and maybe see if you can slow yourself down so you can see a little bit more clearly. So on behalf of Jack and Kiani, and we'll definitely put all his handles into the description of the podcast episode so that you can follow him and Restora and all the rest of it. So take care, gang. Stay safe, healthy, happy, and we'll speak to you again real soon.
Thank you so much for joining us. We are very grateful for your time, and we really hope that we've provided some value.
Follow us on Instagram if you've liked what you've heard, and if you have anything that you want us to talk about, things that might have been bugging you but you've not quite had the bottle to really bring it out into the open, send us a DM and we'll happily bring it to the table.